Hello, this is your BAFA Librarian, Shannon Jackson. Today I'll be reading the first chapter of New Year's Kiss by Lee Matthews. Take a listen to this first chapter and then come down to our library to check it out and read the rest. Here we go. Chapter 1. December 26th. It looks like a drunk elf threw up in here. I snorted a laugh and looked at my sister Lauren as we stopped just inside the sliding glass doors to the Evergreen Lodge. Lauren was not wrong. The huge 3-story lobby atrium, with its exposed wood beams and tremendous chandeliers made of 1,000 fake deer antlers, was still decorated for Christmas, and the sensory experience was an onslaught of Yuletide cheer. Every one of the beams was swagged with evergreen garland and roped with white twinkle lights. The chandeliers had been draped in red and green plaid ribbon, and large glass balls hung overhead. Christmas-themed pillows overflowed from every couch and chair, and there were Christmas trees of all sizes everywhere. In the corners, on the counters, acting as centerpieces for the low coffee tables, there was even a life-sized animatronic Santa next to the check-in desk, waving with one hand and holding a plate of cookies in the other, while the instrumental soundtrack to the Nutcracker played at a respectful volume from hidden surround sound speakers. "Why does the elf have to be drunk?" I asked. Lauren rolled her eyes like I was so lame, which, let's be honest, I should be used to by now. But my cheeks went ahead and started burning anyway. Lauren pretty much always thought I was lame. I wasn't sure why I kept trying. If there was one thing for certain on this earth, it was that my big sister and I did not share the same sense of humor, or style, or basic outlook on life, and still... "No, seriously," I said. "Couldn't the elf just have the flu, or E. coli?" "Ew," Lauren scrunched up her perfect nose. "That's so gross." "How is throwing up from the flu grosser than throwing up from being drunk? Barf is barf." "Why do you always do this?" Lauren asked. I have no idea, I thought. "Do what?" I said. "Overanalyze everything. It was just an offhanded joke. God, Tess, just chill." Lauren sighed the sigh of the world-weary and looked at her phone, punching in a message with her thumbs before shoving it back in the pocket of her tight jeans. The second she looked up, she shouted, "Loretta!" and raised her arm straight up in the air. Her smile even seemed genuine, which was impressive, considering Lauren had spent the entire shuttle ride over from the tiny regional airport, bitching about how our grandmother, who had insisted we call her Loretta from the day each of us could talk, hadn't sent a car. Instead, we had been jammed into the back of a 12-seat Evergreen Lodge minibus with 10 other ski-obsessed Vermont vacationers, all of whom had been in far better, louder, and even singier moods than we had. 12 Days of Christmas was going to be playing on repeat in my head until basically the end of time. "Girls!" Loretta called, walking over to us in her high heels and pencil skirt. Her chic steel-gray bob gleamed under the lights, and her makeup was, as always, perfectly applied. Cheekbones defined, lips outlined, eyelashes long and curled. She air-kissed first Lauren, then me, enveloping us in a cloud of her rose-scented perfume, then stepped back to look us over. Loretta was wearing a white silk shirt, a pearl choker, and tasteful diamond earrings. She looked like $1,000,000, as usual. I tugged at the frayed cuffs of my sweatshirt and wondered if any of my friends' grandmothers made them feel frumpy and unstylish like mine did. Wasn't it supposed to be the other way around? My other grandma, Nana, my mom's mom, was 20 pounds heavier than Loretta, wore nothing but colorful cotton sweaters and jeans, and smelled of apple pie and Bengay. She made me feel ready for Fashion Week. Not that I had put in maximum effort this morning. The day after the worst Christmas ever, and I was getting on a plane with my sister to enjoy a week of exile. If any day had ever screamed comfy sweats, it was this one. "Oh, it's good to see you both," Loretta said. "How was your trip?" "It was fine," I told her, just as Lauren said. "It was long." This was true. We had to fly from Philadelphia to Boston, hang out in the airport there for over an hour, and then board this tiny plane over to the Stowe airport, where we'd gotten on the musical shuttle bus. But I'd never been one to complain. "Well, you're here now. Just wait until you see all the incredible events the staff has planned for this week. You girls are going to have such a fabulous time." Lauren looked at me out of the corner of her eye, and I had to look away to keep from laughing again. There was always a litany of incredible events planned at Evergreen Lodge. My dad's family had run the place for generations with Loretta at the helm now. The lodge was more like a compound, consisting of the main building with its huge lobby, event spaces, restaurants and coffee bar, indoor pool, fully equipped gym, and 100 hotel-style rooms. But it didn't end there. Several outbuildings housed a spa, a greenhouse, a boat, a wedding chapel, a dance hall, a couple dozen private cabins, and the little green lodge at the top of the ski lifts where people could rest and get hot chocolate and snacks between runs. Plus, there was a staff of hundreds, each with their own specialty, whether it be lifeguarding, line dancing, or fireside storytelling. Loretta knew every member of the staff by name and treated them all like family, which was to say, she smiled at them occasionally. Evergreen Lodge reminded me of this movie called Dirty Dancing, which my mom had made both me and Lauren watch the second we turned 12. It had been Mom's favorite movie as a kid, and sometimes I wondered if that movie was the entire reason my mother had fallen in love with my dad. She must have walked into Evergreen Lodge the first time and envisioned Baby and Johnny doing their iconic lift in the center of the lobby and just said, "That's it, I'm in." Of course, Mom and Dad's romance hadn't worked out quite as well as the one depicted in the movie. My parents were currently in the midst of finalizing their divorce, which was the entire reason Lauren and I were here. Usually we came in the summer because my mom liked hiking better than skiing, but we'd been here a few times in early February so that Lauren and I could learn to ski, which was one of my dad's favorite things. This was the first time I had seen the place all done up for the holidays, though. Normally, I loved Christmas and would relish this cozy, merry atmosphere. With the way things were in my life right now, though, I was not in the mood. Christmas was over, and I sort of wished the staff had already demarried the place. A family of 4 walked through the doors behind us, toting their skis and snowboards, the parents laughing and holding hands with ruddy faces and windswept hair. My heart panged. How could people be walking around all happy and carefree when everything was falling apart? "Let's get you 2 settled," Loretta said, clasping her hands. She pivoted on her heel and led us across the lobby. "I've researched one of the bigger rooms on the 3rd floor for you. It has fantastic views of the mountains and the lake. Not that I expect you'll be spending much time in your room, what with everything going on around the resort." "Wait, our room?" Lauren said. "As in one room?" "Yes, I reserved just the one this time," Loretta said, glancing back over her shoulder at us, with an expression that told us there would be no arguments. "Your parents thought it would be good for the 2 of you to spend some time together. You know, family time." Heat flared through my entire body. How hypocritical could our parents be? Right now, at this very moment, they were literally splitting up our family. They had shipped us off the day after Christmas for the express purpose of dividing their things, boxing up my dad's stuff, moving him out. Because of them, there would never be family time again. So why did Lauren and I have to suffer? "You've got to be kidding me," Lauren scoffed. "Do you have any idea how hypocritical that is?" "Lauren," I scolded under my breath, though I was more annoyed that my sister had the guts to say what I didn't. "What? You know it's true," Lauren said, as we stopped into the elevator. There was a giant wreath hung on the back wall, full of glittering berries and fake cardinals. An instrumental version of It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas played through the overhead speakers. Loretta hit the button for the 3rd floor and sniffed. "Girls, whatever your thoughts on your parents' current situation, you must understand this is difficult for them too. They're both doing the best they can. If throwing us out and forcing us to share the same room for a week is the best they can do, then we have serious problems," I thought. I glanced at Loretta. Maybe I could ask my grandmother if I could come live with her. Maybe if I spent my last year and a half of high school with Loretta, I'd become poised and sophisticated by osmosis. And one day I could take over Evergreen Lodge and run the ice skating competitions each January, and the s'mores and scares campfires nights at Halloween, and the movies under the stars on summer weekends. Loretta looked back at me. "We should get you an appointment at the salon while you're here, Tess. I don't know what's going on with that hair." Lauren laughed. Or maybe not. It wasn't as if I didn't want to be more like my sister. In certain ways, anyway. I would have killed to have that seemingly effortless beauty of hers, to look fresh-faced and pretty without a hair out of place at all times. But for me, it was just impossible. Lauren took after our mom, having inherited her gorgeous olive complexion, lustrous dark hair, and natural curves. I, however, looked just like our Irish dad, with skin so white I practically glowed in the dark, and very dark blonde hair. Even on those rare days when I did manage to get my perfectly straight locks to look sleek and healthy before leaving the house, by the time I hit the bathroom after homeroom, it was all piecey and lanky and just hanging there. While Lauren walked around looking like she had just stepped off a yacht somewhere in the Greek Isles, I looked more like I'd just come from the potato fields and a hard day's work. Such was the genetic roulette wheel, I guessed. I mean, we'd learned all about it in bio at the beginning of the year. I knew it was no one's fault, but that didn't change the fact that it sucked. And it sucked even harder that my dear old grandmother felt the need to point out my flaws, especially when those very flaws had come from her side of the family, thank you very much. You two get settled, and I'll see you down in the antelope room for dinner in a bit. Thanks, Loretta, I said gamely as our grandmother silently closed the door. Lauren tossed her suitcase onto the double bed near the bathroom and groaned. I cannot believe we have to share a room for the next week. She pulled out her phone and started texting. No offense. I rolled my eyes and wheeled my suitcase over to the dresser to start unpacking my clothes. Even when we were on vacation, I liked to feel settled and organized, while Lauren preferred to live out of her suitcase like she was already on her planned gap year in Europe, where she intended to stay at Airbnbs or with any friends lucky enough to be studying abroad freshman year, and live life like it was intended to be lived, whatever that meant. I couldn't even imagine flying to a foreign country by myself, let alone cobbling together an itinerary and finding ways to earn money on the fly. I'd started babysitting the second I was old enough, and I had been stashing away 20% of everything I made ever since, saving up for college textbooks. My parents were always moaning and groaning about how paying for college wasn't about just the tuition, but all the living expenses and supplies, especially the books. The way they talked, you'd think textbooks were all made of diamonds and gold. I had no idea whether my parents' divorce was going to affect the family's money situation, or Lauren's and my college funds, but there was no way I was not going away to school. If there was anything I could do to help make it happen, I would. Traveling the world was all well and good for Lauren, but I was about schedules and goals and ticking off syllabus boxes. I couldn't wait to be in a place where everyone was focused on learning. Once I'd gotten everything neatly placed inside the dresser, I zipped up my suitcase again, shoved it in a corner, and turned to gaze out the huge picture window overlooking the grounds. The sun was just setting over the mountains, turning the winter sky the most intense shade of pink I'd ever seen. Just below, dozens of people skated around the frozen lake, little kids grabbing onto parents' legs, older kids chasing one another and biffing spectacularly. A couple near the center held hands and twirled in a fast circle, using centrifugal force to keep them going. It was all very pretty, so I took a deep breath and attempted to smile. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite pull it off. Irritated, I yanked the heavy curtains closed. That was when I spotted a printed schedule on the polished oak desk, a piece of furniture they'd stuck in every room. I suppose because of all the business retreats the lodge hosted. With a glance, I saw that it was a calendar of all the events Loretta had alluded to in the lobby. Everything from timed snowman building competitions to a snowshoe race. Certain items had been highlighted in green with a little M written next to them in Loretta's stiff handwriting. It was a lovely schedule, really, color-coded by age range for each event, with the start and end times indicated. Just my kind of document. What do you think this means? I asked, walking over to Lauren's bed. My sister was now kicked back against the pillows, watching music videos on YouTube. What? Lauren asked, without moving her eyes off the screen. I grabbed her phone. Hey, she yelled, and shoved the paper in front of her face. This. What do you think the M's mean? Lauren snatched the page from my hand and scanned it, squinting. International Buffet, New Year's Eve Teen Dance, Campfire Bingo, all marked with an M. She slapped the paper down dramatically and looked up at me. You don't think she means mandatory, do you? Oh, no. No way, I said. I plan to spend the next 6 days in this room reading and watching TV. There's a shock, Lauren said sarcastically. You're the one who was just watching YouTube, I shot back. I was relaxing for 5 minutes, not hermiting myself away for days. Lauren got up and pulled off her sweater, which she tossed onto the floor in a heap. I'm going to get out of here as soon as possible. But if Loretta thinks it's going to be so I can build gingerbread houses, she read off the list, making a disgusted face, she's out of her mind. Actually, building gingerbread houses sounded kind of fun. My dad and I used to make them every Christmas when I was little, from a kit, but still. I loved planning out the decorations for our house and using the squeeze bag of icing to attach the candies, the ones I didn't eat. Suddenly, I missed my dad so much my chest hurt. Why was Mom making him leave? Why couldn't she just try harder? I don't know what your problem is, Lauren said, looking over the calendar again. Don't you just love to have every moment of your life scheduled? Okay, she had a point. If I were in any mood for festive holiday fun, I would be all about this calendar of events, especially the mandatory parts. Honestly, even as I stood there, the idea was beginning to grow on me. If my grandmother wanted us at these things, we should go. I was sure she had her reasons. Mom says hi and have fun, by the way, Lauren said, handing the paper back to me and holding up her phone to show me her messages. She said answer your text, too. I had turned my phone off as soon as we'd left our house in Philly that morning and hadn't turned it on since. I didn't want to talk to my mom. I didn't really feel like talking to anyone, except my dad, suddenly. I rummaged through my backpack for my phone and powered it up. There were a bunch of texts from my friends, wishing me a good trip or asking what I'd gotten for Christmas. Then there were 5 texts from my mother, all checking in kinds of things, and one from my dad. He'd sent me a picture of a heart someone had drawn in the snow on a mailbox. My own heart pinged. I texted him back. Good one, 20 points. He immediately sent me a thumbs up and a kissy emoji. Me and my dad had been sending each other random hearts we found in the world ever since I first got my phone in middle school. My father traveled a lot for work. He was legal counsel for a mid-sized boutique hotel chain called Galileo Properties that had locations all over the world, and it was a fun way for us to stay connected, even if he was in Bali or Belgium or Canada somewhere. We'd only instituted the point system when we'd had a mock fight over whose find on a particular fall day had been cooler, the yellow heart-shaped leaf I had found in the backyard, or the heart someone had drawn in the dust on a Jeep parked outside a hotel in Australia, along with the words, "Love is messy." The highest a heart could score was 25 points. I was being a little generous with my score for the snow heart, but I was in a generous mood, when it came to my dad anyway. I put my phone away without texting Mom and looked at the schedule. Well, our mandatory international buffet dinner is in 15 minutes. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to that, Lauren said, back on her phone. I wonder if there's any place around here that has good tapas. She opened Yelp and started typing. There was a peppy knock on the door. Lauren and I exchanged a questioning look, and then she shoved herself off the bed and opened the door without even checking the peephole. The girl was going to get killed one of these days, for sure. Hello, I'm Tarek. You must be Tess. The guy standing in the hallway didn't look like a serial killer. He looked like the lead in a Hallmark Christmas movie, except younger. He had broad shoulders, a thick head of brown hair, and eyes so blue I could tell they were blue even from across the room. He wore a forest green Evergreen Lodge polo and black jeans that looked really good on him. Lauren laughed. No, that's Tess. I'm Lauren, the pretty one. Seriously? But Tarek just smiled, and it was a killer smile. Lauren was a goner for sure. She fell in love at least once a day. I like your confidence, he said. Well, it's nice to meet you, Lauren. He glanced over at me. I guess that makes you Tess. Got it in one, I said. Nice to meet you both, he said politely. Mrs. Sock sent me to escort you down to our famous annual international buffet dinner. Great, I said. I'm ready. Have fun with your tapas, Lauren. I made a move for the door, but Lauren stepped between me and Tarek. Actually, I changed my mind. I had no idea this buffet was famous. How could I miss that? Shocker. Obviously, now that there was a hot guy involved, Lauren was in. Just give me 5 minutes to get ready, she told Tarek. And then she placed one hand on his chest and literally shoved him into the hallway. Tarek laughed. All right, then. I guess I'll just be waiting out here. Yeah, you will. Lauren gave him a finger wave and closed the door. Then she turned to look at me, her mouth open. Oh, my God, she whispered. Did you see that guy? I was standing right here, I said. But Lauren was already in the bathroom, running the water, scrubbing her face, as if I didn't even exist. And that's the end of Chapter 1. Come down to the BAFA Library to read more.